Hello, everything is fine. This video and offer help me help you. Subscribe and I'll bring more videos. Offenses against Vinicius Jr. are part of the history of racism in football. Timeline shows several episodes in international competitions. The repercussion of the racist attacks directed at Real Madrid striker Vinicius Jr. in the duel with Valencia for the Spanish championship last Sunday, 21, shows that this is not an isolated fact. In recent years, there have been several cases of racism against Brazilian athletes in European football, on and off the field, but they are not limited to the old continent. They also advanced in Brazil. Daniel Alves, Tyson, Dentinho, Neymar, Roberto Carlos, Malcolm, Richarlison, Hulk. They have all been victims of racism in Europe, from bananas thrown on the lawn to monkey noises in the stands. The same Spain in which Vinicius Jr. has suffered from racist and hate manifestations has been the scene of many of these attacks. This repeat of attacks on Vinicius Jr. reflects years and years of leniency by the Spanish authorities towards racism. Especially on the football field, it's not just Vinicius Jr. who has suffered, but other players across Europe as well, like Belgian striker Romelu Lukaku, a victim of racism in April and sent off for reacting to racist insults, in Italy, where he defends to Inter Milan. There is a history of racism, with more than 20 years, with black players from Brazil and other countries, highlighted Jorge Santana, professor of history and master in social sciences at the State University of Rio de Janeiro, URJ, in a statement to the Stadium program on TV Brazil. Vinicius has been an almost isolated voice in the fight against racism in La Liga. Spanish institutions look like merchants and do not adopt tough attitudes and policies against racism. Of the 10 complaints made by Vinicius, since 2021, 3 were archived by the Spanish League. This makes the league an ally of racism in Spain, added Santana, who is the author of the book, Excuses, My Idol Barbosa. Brazil. Racism in the world's most popular sport, however, is not limited to Europe. In Brazil, the practice advances in a worrying way. According to a survey by the Observatory of Racial Discrimination in Football, 90 cases of racial offenses were recorded in 2022, against 64 in 2021. An increase of 40%. In January of this year, President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva sanctioned Law 14,532, which typifies racial injury as a crime of racism, which was already considered a crime in the country, by Law 7,716, of 1989. The General Regulation of Competitions of the Brazilian Confederation, CBF, for 2023 indicates punishment for cases of discrimination, which can range from a warning to the loss of points. In the country, one of the most notable cases occurred in 2014, involving the now former goalkeeper Arana. At the time at Santos, he was the target of racist offenses from Grêmio fans in the first leg of the confrontation for the round of 16 of the Copa do Brasil, at the arena of the team from Rio Grande do Sul, in Porto Alegre. The insults, initially, were not included in the referee Wilton Pereira Sampaio's summary. An addendum was made to the document, finally citing the occurrence. In an unprecedented decision, the Superior Court of Sports Justice, SJTD, excluded Tricolor from the national tournament even before the return game. Since then, despite the increase in cases, there has not been the same punishment. In August 2021, Brusque even lost 3 points during Serie B of the Brazilian Championship, because of racist offenses by a manager to striker Celcinho, from Londrina, in a duel at Estadio Augusto Bauer, in Brusque, SC. In November, however, the STJD ended up returning the points to the Santa Catarina club. In my opinion, it should be included in the regulation of the championships that any prejudice manifestations would imply the immediate loss of points from that match, being subject to relegation if they are repeated. The time has passed for FIFA, International Football Federation, to take a serious stand. It is very nice to campaign and say that everyone is equal in football, when these cases happen so many times, analyzed journalist Claudio Nogueira, responsible for books such as Futebol Brasil Memoria and Esport, Usina de Sonhos e Milhos, also to the stadium. At the continental level, the South American Football Confederation, CONMEBOL, last year extended the punishments for racism in games of the tournaments it organizes. The changes were motivated by sequential offenses against Brazilian fans and athletes in away matches during the first semester. The minimum fine increased from 150,000 Brazilian reals to 500,000 Brazilian reals, with the possibility that the qualified team would have to work with part of the stands closed or without an audience. Sponsorships. If within the field the punishments depend on the sports entities, outside it there is the understanding that the brands that assign their names to clubs and events must pressio NAR for actions against prejudice. After the case involving Vinicius Jr., the Sleeping Giants Brazil organization activated the 20 sponsors of the Spanish league on social networks. According to the executive director of the organization, Leonardo Leal, only two, Santander and Puma, had manifested themselves until the publication of this report. When sponsors associate a brand with the event, they also, willingly or not, associate themselves with cases of racism that end up happening. As the league does not take action, we asked for help from these sponsors, who have a lot of power in the institution, including financing the championship, so that they give voice to the complaints of racism and the league, finally, takes action. We were waiting for their proactive positioning last Sunday, the day the case happened and the debate took over the networks. When we consume a company, we don't just consume its product, but also the idea, the vision of that company for the world, declared Leal to Agência Brasil. I think an analogy that fits a lot is in relation to platforms, social networks. They end up not acting on hateful content and misinformation, so we trigger sponsors, as the main entity doesn't move. With the Spanish league it is the same case. This demonstrates that if it is not for follow the money, in the literal translation of the English, for putting pressure on those who finance games, championships or any organization that ends up promoting racist or hateful speech, we do not see many escapes or even accountability of these hateful agents, concluded the director of Sleeping Giants. Hope you enjoyed the video. What did you think of the video? Subscribe to the channel and leave your opinion in the comments.